morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, day 3 of the multicultural cooking show. So we're here today at the College of Sequoias. We have our specialist, Kyran Wiley. He's our culinary instructor. Today we're going to be doing some soul food. So this is the only one of the 4 things that we've learning this week that I've done before. So I'm here to steal information and take notes. I make some good collard greens. And we also got some good old-fashioned stewed cornbread. So without further ado, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Brett. And thanks, COS, for having me. No place I'd rather be. I hope everybody's being safe out there and taking care of themselves, being healthy, big thing. I love being here at the College of Sequoias. I love cooking. Cooking is obviously really important. I think almost just as important as driving. You should be able to provide your family and yourself with some type of nutrition. And I think that is so vital to life. I think it's kind of a lost art, unfortunately. But anyway, especially now with the pandemic, right, and where restaurants are shutting down, it kind of becomes even more vital that we actually know how to cook food for ourselves and obviously provide for our families. But today, and then of course next week with Thanksgiving coming around, Brett asked me to do this, and the first thing that came to mind was Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving is obviously one of my favorite holidays, meaning that the feast that you get is just perfect, right? You're around family, it's just so warm inside, the aromas is just so warm and heartfelt, and it just brings me right back to my family and somewhere, where I just love to be. I just love my family. I love to be around them. I love the smells. I love the hugs. And basically, I just love the warmth. So I just kind of wanted to go back to things that I'm used to cooking or that my family always cooks on Thanksgiving, something that's real familiar to me. And one is going to be my grandma's soulful collard greens, and then my grandma's skillet cornbread, right? They go hand in hand. It is not a Thanksgiving without it. And I'm telling you, as soon as I walk in that house on Thanksgiving, the first smell I get is just those greens that it's been cooking in this rich broth for about 2.5 hours. So that's just something, a little bit behind me, walking into that house, all the family, all the love, and just this beautiful warm aroma. So first I want to talk a little bit about the collard greens and just talk a little about why it's so popular. So obviously collard greens are a very Southern dish. They're very, made popular by the Southerners. And of course, it's a big side for Thanksgiving, okay, for Thanksgiving. Many Southerners, they have their own personal favorite of green. Okay, so when we talk about these greens, what we're talking about is just a leaf part of the cabbage, right? So the cabbage is like the nice bulb. We're not talking about the ball of cabbage, we're talking about the greens that are spreading off it. Okay, so there's many different kinds. You have turnip, right? You got mustard, and then the most sought after is going to be the collards, okay, the collard greens. So obviously it's a nice, huge, big leaf. As you can kind of see, they come in nice bushels, okay, but this actually goes a long way, okay? It's very similar to kale, okay, and spinach as well, a little bit. Okay, but all of them have a different unique flavor and a different texture as well. So with collards being the most popular, kind of a stable green vegetable in the South, it's available year-round, okay, year-round, but it's especially best around wintertime and early spring. So that's when you can get it, that's when it's the best. Collard greens have been cooked for honestly before Christ, right? The Romans used to cook with it, but what kind of makes it different and what makes it the Southern style is the way that we cook it. Okay, anybody can cook it by just throwing it in a pan and sauteing it with some butter and so forth and so on. But the really Southern way of cooking it is really the slow, long process where you make this rich, developed broth called a pot liquor, right? So you make this broth and you just slowly cook these greens, and just the aromas and the flavor that is developed by slowly cooking, it's just one of a kind. Okay, definitely one of a kind. It obviously, the arrival of this cooking method came over with the African slaves, right? Greens did not originate in Africa, okay? But the style of cooking that we added to it, that is what makes it an African style dish, okay? And that's soul food that we're kind of talking about. Slaves were given ham hocks. We were giving leftovers, right, from from the kitchen, right? So we're in the plantation, and of course we got to make food for our families, large families that are working hard in the fields, right? We need the nutrients, we need to feed everybody. So we were given all the scraps, okay? And we had to make the best out of those scraps. And what you get is just this beautiful, soulful rendition of the green. And of course we have the, this creation of the Southern collard green. So that's a little bit of the history behind it. And we're gonna kind of get started. You can make this as simple as you want. I'm gonna try to add some, a little bit of heart into it and try to incorporate as many flavors as possible. Okay, so anyway, what we're gonna do is first we're gonna develop this pot liquor, right? A pot liquor is just like this broth, this rich broth that is developed from cooking for hours and hours. And you can almost drink this stuff, right? So yeah, basically we're gonna start with that. I have a large Dutch oven here that I'm gonna get started. And in front of me, I have some ingredients. I'm sure that Brett will send the recipe out, but I have some bacon here chopped up. I love bacon. Bacon makes everything better, adds a lot of flavor, right? I got some smoked ham hocks here, right, which toward the leg of that pig. Is gonna add a lot of flavor, and it's smoked. Okay, so it's almost already ready to go, but it's gonna add a little bit of smoky flavor to it. Okay, I got some aromatics here, so I got some onions, some garlic, and some just chopped tomatoes. I got some spices here, so I have a Creole seasoning, okay, which is gonna be like thyme, oregano. I got some paprika, and I got some chili flakes, because basically I want to give this a little bit of a kick, okay, a little bit of a kick. And then normally when I make mine, I will make a turkey stock, right, from the year before. So let's say, imagine we're a year before, right? I'll carve my turkey, I'll have that carcass. I will make a stock with that carcass, and I will freeze my stock for the next year. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have that with me right now, so we're just going to use good old style chicken stock. Okay. If you don't want to use chicken stock or chicken broth, you can use water as well. I like to add flavor. Okay. So I'm telling you that turkey stock from the year before goes a long way, but chicken broth works just as fine as well. And then last but not least, of course, we have our greens. Okay. Greens coming from the earth are going to be very, very dirty vegetables. Extremely, extremely dirty. They have a lot of grit. They have a lot of sand. They have a lot of dirt. Okay. It takes a long time to wash them. It's almost the most important process, though, because if not, you're obviously you're going to have sand in your pot liquor, and that's not something you want. Okay. So anyway, you want to wash these. I cut mine into strips. Some people cut them into squares. To each his own. Okay. I cut mine into strips and I soak them in water and really try to clean that grit. Then I'll rinse out that water. I'll rinse them again. I'll fill the sink of water again, and I'll rinse them again, and I'll keep rinsing them until that water runs out clear and there's no more grit, no more sand. Okay, no more sand. Some folks, when they cook with it, they like to use the stem, right? Very nutritious. Okay. Me personally, a little too bitter for my lifestyle. I tend to take them off. Okay. But obviously, back in the slavery days, there's no way they would have ever taken the stem off. It's all nutrients. It's all good for you. But pretty easy to take the stem off. You can just grab by the stem here. You just run your hand along this. And that stem just kind of comes right off. Pretty simple. Okay, and you have this huge leafy green. I roll them up like a big cigar, and then I just slice it, and then you have your sliced collard greens after you clean them, and they're ready to go. Okay, so pretty simple. But anyway, we're gonna start off with this bacon. I'm gonna use all this lovely bacon fat here, and we're gonna get this rolling. I'm gonna kind of do 2 or 3 different things at one time. I hope that's okay with you guys as we get rolling here. So what I'm looking for in this bacon, and this is about 3 to 4 pieces of bacon that I've chopped up, okay, is I want to really render that fat, and I want to use this bacon fat after to add obviously flavor and then to saute all my aromatics in as well. Okay, and of course I'm going to add the bacon back in later, right? There's no way that I would just leave the bacon out. Of course, it's going to add great flavor. But for now, what I really want is that fat, right? I want that bacon fat because that's really going to start my pot liquor. That's going to start my broth and really start bringing all those flavors together. Okay. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to brown this bacon. It should take around, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes. But I'm really going to start rendering that fat. Smoked ham hocks you can normally find at the store. I got mine down the street at a local market we have called Quality Meats. They take really good care of us. I like to support local if possible. If you don't have a smoked ham hock, that's fine. You can get regular ham hocks. The only problem is that they're going to take a little longer to cook in your broth. Okay, the smoked ones, meaning that they've been smoked for a few hours already, means they're already probably nice and tender and ready to go, which means that when I put in my broth, it's only going to take about 40 minutes to really make it start falling off the bone, like, kind of like we want. But you do not have to have the smoke. I just prefer the smoky flavor. It kind of brings me back, obviously to grandma's house. There's nothing like when you start cooking bacon. I mean anywhere, right? It's the aromatic, just crazy.
Oh yeah, it smells good.
And it really gets you going. Okay. For the pot, you just want to make sure you have a big enough pot. I don't know if you ever cooked spinach or anything or any other green before. It does tend to shrink down, right? This looks like a crazy amount of greens. Not so much. This will serve maybe, it looks like it'll serve maybe like 12 to 14 people. This will maybe serve 6 to 8 when we're all done, right? As it wilts, and of course, as we cook, it just concentrates, and of course, it's gonna get smaller, okay? But you obviously wanna have a big enough pot, right? You don't wanna, have too much crowding going on in your pot. You wanna make sure you have enough room. I like these Dutch ovens. They hold heat really well, and it just seems to add a little more flavor to them. I always have salt and pepper next to me. I'm a big pepper guy. When I'm thinking about my grandma's greens, they just had this really smoky, peppery flavor. Something that I can't really imitate. I've tried 1,000 times, and for some reason, mine are never as peppery as hers. There's just something about hers that is so special. But I'm not gonna, bother her too much. She just passed away this year, so this is kind of for her. And of course, my aunts make them. My aunts make them now, which is awesome, also. But they just don't have grandma's touch, right? No one else, no one else will.
And she never measures anything.
No, absolutely not. There's no such thing as measuring's all in your senses, right? The sense of smell, how big your hands are, right? There's no measuring. It's just throwing in, right? This is how much we're gonna need. And for some reason, they just, the real good soulful cooks, that's just how they cook. They don't need ingredient list or anything like that. They just know what goes. Pretty amazing. Cool. So my bacon's getting there, rendering all that fat off. Now I'm going to leave the fat obviously inside of this pot here so we can keep it rolling. Use a little spoon here. Start getting that bacon out.
Smells like breakfast.
Smells like breakfast. Got me going. Okay. Cool, so I got that bacon. I'm just gonna put it off to the side. I'm gonna re-add it a little bit later. And next I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add all my aromatics. So I got my garlic, my onions, my tomatoes. I'm gonna go ahead and put those right into the pan. I tend to always salt and flavor things as I go. It seems to always make it better in the end, so I'm not worried about adding too much salt when I get in. As long as I add as I go, it just seems to make more sense, and it helps the onions sweat a little bit, brings a little bit more flavor out of them as well. So we're just gonna do these. I'm gonna throw my ham hocks in as well and kind of get those rolling a little bit, right? Get some heat to them. And we're just gonna cook this just until those onions start to tenderize just a little bit. Okay? We don't want to get too much color on them. We don't need a lot of color on them. But we're just gonna start, bring out the aromatics. They're gonna start getting a little translucent. Okay. And I have that bacon on the bottom that maybe had been stuck to the bottom. I'm really gonna start scraping that up and add that, right? That's all flavor. That's all good stuff that we definitely want to add into our broth. Okay. So the key to good greens is gonna be that broth, okay? That good broth, or as my grandma called the pot liquor. I'll let that do its thing for just a moment here.
So who's making the greens for Thanksgiving next week?
So funny story, I'm only allowed to, even though it is my profession to cook, only allowed to bring dessert.
What?
Yeah, my aunts and my cousins, all women, do not really like men in their kitchen too much, right? They're more like, get out there and cook some salmon or something, like get out, we're gonna do all the mac and cheese. the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the greens, the corn. They do all that. So they just tell me, Kyran, just go ahead and bring some dessert. So I normally bring like bread pudding. But my cousin, Diane, she will mostly be making our greens this year. And she always has like little chilies in there. But she grows those chilies. I wasn't able to go see her with this COVID going on. I was going to try to steal some. But I'm sure she's doing fine up there. And I hope, we can all get together maybe next year for, obviously for Thanksgiving.
So your family must really know how to throw down if they won't let the chef cook.
They know. It's just tradition, kind of in a way. As long as I've been going, my dad's never made anything. It's just always been the women. It's like madness in there, even though they know exactly what's going on. It's you get in there, you give them a kiss, and you get out the kitchen.
Yeah, because you are in the way.
You are in the way, exactly. We have too much stuff going on. So my onions and my ham hock, my garlic, my tomatoes are really starting to come together, right? Starting to get some really good aromas going on. I'm gonna kind of add my Creole seasoning, my paprika, and my chilies in here now, and start bringing out some of that fragrance also. I'm sure everybody's got their own rendition of what spices they want to use in theirs, and that's okay. I like the Creole seasoning, kind of brings out the South, I think. And then of course I like that spice, so I did it definitely with those chili flakes.
What kind of Creole seasoning do you use? Because I see all kinds of.
There is a bunch. It's just kind of with each his own. I just use one. It's kind of like an Old Bay style Creole seasoning that goes a long way. Really salty, so you definitely got to be careful with it. But that's the one that I use. But if you go to the store, you'll find so many. It's just all about playing around, figuring out which one works for you.
Okay.
So this is really coming together, right? It really starting to smell pretty good.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna go ahead and add my broth now to this and really get this broth rolling. Okay. Now you want to add enough broth to really cover those ham hocks, right? That's gonna be key. Once you cover the ham hocks, then you're really gonna let them simmer and start falling apart. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit more here. I know you guys can't see it, but it's a really dark, reddish, just really rich broth we have going on here. And we're basically gonna cook this, since I have the smoked ham hocks, for roughly around 45 minutes is all we're gonna need. Now, if you didn't have the smoked ones, you might need to do like an hour and a half to really start breaking down those ham hocks, because that ham hock meat just fall off these hocks, okay? And we're gonna, of course, add that back in too, right? We would never leave that meat off. But anyway, we're gonna let this come up to a boil, and for about 45 minutes, to really start bringing out the flavor, and then of course cook those ham hocks. Okay, so we'll come back here.
One thing that we do is we save the ham bone, like from Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely, and use that. Yeah. A good thing about greens that you can do so many different ways, right? You can do vegetarian greens if you wish, right? You can do turkey, greens. So it's kind of a way to kind of have a little bit of yourself, and you put so much personality into your greens. As I said, even if you don't eat pork, right? You don't have to use pork like we are too. I'm just really trying to bring out the southern part of it by using that ham hock. Chicken feet can be used, right? Pig feet is another one that can be used a lot. Like I said, giving the scraps and making these beautiful creations is really what is really what it's all about. I mean, that's really what we're kind of made from. And I mean, there's nothing better than that. Just that soul that comes with it. So while we're waiting for that to come to a boil, okay, I'm not going to add my greens yet here. I'm going to put these off to the side here and just have them ready to go. We're going to talk about this cornbread real quick. Okay, this is a skillet cornbread. So this is Grandma's recipe. She gave it to me, which was really nice of her. So what I have is I have an oven already on. Pretty simple. It's about 400 degrees. I have a cast iron skillet. I love cast irons. If you do not have one, I'd highly recommend you getting one. They're not that even expensive in price anymore, roughly around $20 to $30. But cast irons will last you a lifetime if you take care of them. And the longer you use them, just the more flavor they develop and the more histories behind them. It's just so neat. My boss gave me one about 14 years ago, my first boss, and it's just one of the best presents I've ever gotten, and it's huge. I take it on camping trips, put it over open fire. I bake with it. I do so many different things. So cast iron might be something that you want to look into if you don't have it. I like making the cornbread in the cast iron. Just the nice heat from the cast iron is going to give the cornbread this nice little crust on the outside, this dark, beautiful, buttery crust. And then, of course, I like the way it looks when I present it in the cast iron. I just think it looks really, really neat, really rustic. Okay, but for your regular cornbread, not too hard of a recipe as normal. Okay, you're just gonna have your. I have store-bought yellow cornbread mix. Interesting enough, right? I've added 1 cup of all-purpose flour to that. 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a little bit of sugar, and a little bit of salt. So that's what I have in this dry ingredients right here. Okay, really nice, really ready to go. And then, of course, you always want to separate your dry from your wet ingredients anytime you're making a quick bread or a cornbread. And then in my wet ingredients here, I got about 1 cup of buttermilk, 1 cup of whole milk, 1 egg, and then I'm going to mix in around a half a cup of butter. Okay, of course, butter makes everything better, right? And if, of course, this is Thanksgiving, I'm not here cooking, for fit right now or to be healthy. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some of this butter in here. And I'm gonna save just a tiny bit of this butter, okay, just a tiny bit. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is most people use a whisk to, to whisk their cornbread, to mix their cornbread. I don't, I like a spoon. You don't wanna over mix it, okay? Over mixing can cause a lot of different problems, as in it won't rise as well, it'll be a little too tough. Okay, so you just wanna mix this just till it's incorporated. You might even have a few lumps or so still, and that's perfectly fine. I find that using a spoon kind of helps me not over mix it. So I'm gonna add all these ingredients here, all my wet into my dry, and then I'm gonna start simply mixing this up here.
I bet there's a lot of flavor in that skillet.
There's a lot of flavor in the skillet, exactly.
Right.
The best thing about it is cleaning is very simple. I haven't really used soap on it in a long time, right? I just kind of wipe it out, keep it nice and clean. But that's the history behind having these skillets. And I've even had cooks I work with that have been passed down from their grandparents and so forth and so on. So they will last you an extremely long time, and they're totally worth it.
Yeah, I always heard that using soap on a skillet's a big no-no.
Big no-no, absolutely. No degreasers, no chemicals at all, if possible. If you are going to use soap, that's fine. Just warm water and soap, though. Never anything that's going to be, really harsh the damage, of that surface. So here's my cornbread. He's ready mixed up. There's still some lumps in it, right? But that's okay. Very, very simple. Now I have my skillet already heating up in my oven. Okay. Now what it's going to do is get that skillet nice and hot. It's going to develop this nice crust that that I like. That's probably my favorite part of the cornbread, right? The dark buttery crust.
And don't forget, people, that handle is hot.
Oh, absolutely. So we have our cast iron here. Okay. When it's in the oven, some of those greases and stuff kind of come to the surface. I'll use a different towel. I'll wipe it down before. Okay. Beautiful. Then we're going to add that little bit of extra butter that I had. We're going to put that in there. I'm going to switch that around a little bit. Okay. I don't like to have too much butter in there. It kind of will start foaming over. That looks about good to me. Okay. Now I'm just going to put this, this mixture directly into the skillet. It's kind of like you're almost making a big pancake. Sure, we get all that good stuff. And of course, the cornbread, guys, it's as versatile as you, right? You can add anything you want to it. Cheddar cheese, jalapenos, whatnot. I'm not going to, because we're going to have this as a side with my greens, and I don't need any extra flavor. I'm going to have plenty of that when it comes to my greens. But this is going to be ready. We're going to bake it in that oven around 400 degrees for about 30 minutes or so, and then we're going to pull it out and see how it looks. Awesome. So let's see how our broth's doing, our pot liquor's doing. Okay, he's coming along pretty good. Cool. We're going to give it about another couple minutes, and then we'll go ahead and start adding our greens to it. The whole process of cooking greens is going to take a few hours. It's not something you really want to rush. Obviously, cleaning them is going to take you about 30 minutes or so. So you really want to make sure you clean them really well and get that done. But once you get everything cleaned and kind of, as I call mise en place, or ready to go into the pan, the process is fairly simple. And basically, it's just more of a waiting game and really letting those greens and that broth just develop together, right? That flavor and the aromas just really develop together. I've already kind of cooked a batch. I have some ready to go so we don't have to be here for 3 hours zooming while I cook these greens. But I do want to show you what happens when I do add these in here so that you can kind of see them wilt as it goes. Yeah, but this is going to be really flavorful, really good. Of course, anybody can make these at home. I would highly recommend anybody trying it and not being scared of trying them. The only way to get better at anything is obviously to fail, right? So I've made bad greens before, and I've made bad cornbread before. But with time and of course practice, hopefully you get pretty good.
Back to the cleaning process.
Sure.
Now, do you use just water, salt water?
Just water.
Okay.
Keep it very simple. I'll fill up a nice sink, right? Of course, our sinks are dirty. Go scrub that sink out, right? With some nice soap, maybe even wipe it down with a little bit of bleach water, and really make sure it's nice and clean. Okay. Then I'll go ahead and put a plug in it. I'll fill it up with cold water, and then after I have my cut greens, I'll put them in there and really start kind of going at it, right? Really getting that grit and all that sand and all that dirt off, and all that obviously will fall to the bottom, right, of your sink, which you can understand. Then I'll go ahead and get all the greens out, put them in a strainer, and then I will empty out that water, and I will repeat that process over and over again until there's no more grit or sand on the bottom of my sink when I'm done cleaning them. And that's how you know they're really ready to go, right? You don't want any of that sand or grit. Like I said, it is a very dirty vegetable, but that's probably where all the nutrients come from too.
And you'll get sick as a dog.
And you can get sick as a dog also, absolutely.
I grew some greens a few years back, and I didn't clean them as good as you just described.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's one of those things you really don't, you really want to take the time to clean your vegetables, really inspect your vegetables, right? Make sure you look at them before you buy them. People have a tendency just to walk, grab, and run, right? Make sure you look at what you're buying, make sure, it is what you're looking for, okay? So let me bring this over for you. Well, I don't think you can see it or not, okay? But you have this nice broth that's going into a nice boil, okay? It has this boiling here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add my greens to it, okay? Before I add that, I have a little bit of chicken bouillon. Everybody knows this is like the caldo de pollo, okay? This is just chicken-based flavor. It's gonna add a little bit more flavor to my broth. You don't have to add it. I like to add it. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of that in there as well. Okay. And you see these nice big greens here. I'm gonna start putting them in, and as I put them in, they will start wilting slowly, right? So we're gonna pop those in, and you'll kind of see them. It'll be big, and then it'll just go right down to the bottom. You don't want a crazy amount of broth. Once you add all your greens in, the broth should just barely come above those greens, which is good though, because those greens are really gonna start soaking up all that flavor. The rest of them in there. As you can see, it might even be piling over the top. Now give those about a minute, it'll fall right down into that lovely broth.
Have you ever mixed cabbage with your greens, or?
Yes, actually I have, and it's a really good filler. There's nothing wrong with it, right? I mean, you just add anything to these greens, mustard greens, cabbage, turnips, absolutely. And the good thing about this is there's really no wrong way to make them. I don't think so. I think that everybody has their own way that they kind of like developing it. Like I said, I don't make mine the same way my grandma does, right? I like to add a little bit of my flair too. And of course, depending on which meat you're using, you're going to have different flavor as well, right? If you're using a smoked ham hock, it's going to have a little bit of a smoky, kind of peppery flavor. Use more of a turkey, right? Maybe you don't, right? Use ham, might be a little sweeter. So there's many different flavors that you can get from them. But either way, as long as you put your love into it and you give them time to really develop, they're going to come out great.
I know some people also add sugar.
Absolutely. So it's a very, very bitter green. And I urge you, before you cook your greens, to just pop a little bit in your mouth or anything you're cooking, right? Just to get an idea of what it tastes like before you start cooking it or raw, and then what happens to it when you add any heat to it or applying, you know, the cooking process to it and how it changes. Because it's pretty amazing. Because this is a very, very bitter herb. So some people do make them sweet, right? A little bit of sugar. I've heard people adding Worcestershire. I've heard people adding vinegars to them. I personally haven't, but hey, I'm more than willing to give it a try next time. Maybe I'll try them with these ones while they're doing their thing.
And then Professor Parker, he makes some really good greens. He uses a smoked turkey leg.
The smoked turkey leg, yeah. Shoot, Parker's already been in here. I'm hoping to go and give him some, and I hope that he approves.
He'll be back, trust me.
And I really hope that he approves. Then I'm gonna add this extra bacon in here too, right? Keep that going. Now, when that's ready to go, I'm gonna let this develop. I'm gonna put the lid on. I'm gonna turn it down to a nice simmer. Right, I don't want it boiling. This is going to be a slow, kind of gravy-like process. Just let it take its time. And then, so I'm going to turn it down to low. I'm going to turn it down to simmer. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to let this do its thing for about 45 minutes to an hour. Won't even need to peek at it. Just let it do its thing. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Now, does that Dutch oven? What's the difference between that or just a regular
pot? You can definitely use a regular pot. I like the Dutch oven. It's just so hardy that it like doesn't burn, right? You don't have to worry about any scalding going on the bottom of your pan. I cook my rice in Dutch ovens. I cook a lot of things in Dutch ovens too. I'm a Dutch oven skillet type of guy.
Right.
I've burned things before, right? And I've had things scorch on the bottom of my pans, and that drives me nuts, right? So with these Dutch ovens, you really don't have to worry about it. I like things that are versatile. You can add Dutch ovens straight into ovens, right? So forth and so on. You don't have to worry about any like weird handles that might burn or the pan not being able to endure that oven. They always are. So I just like versatile, versatile accessories, cooking accessories and tools, because then I don't need a bunch, right? I just have a few and they work really well. I have different sizes at home, and like I said, I can do so many different things with them.
Are those pretty expensive?
They are not the cheapest things in the world, but like everything in your kitchen, you just apply to it slowly, right? It's like a never-ending, it's like a never-ending thing. You're always adding pieces to your kitchen and slowly developing your kitchen. Nothing is going to be cheap, but if you take care of it, it'll last a long time, and you can always use that to pass down to your kids as well, such as mixers, right? Food processors. No, they're not the cheapest things, right? But if you get them, you take care of them, you don't break the pieces, you keep them all together, then they're really worth something in the long run, and they'll last you a very long time. Same thing with knives also, and yeah.
Spoken like a true chef.
I appreciate that. So this is my pot that's been going already for about 2 hours. And you'll remember how bright green those greens were before? They're really tough, okay? Now they're gonna be silky, tender, and of course a lot darker in color, So what I like to do is I like to scoop some of mine out into a pan here. I've already cooked my cornbread too, because I didn't want to keep you guys waiting too long. But let me kind of show you what happens when you take it out. This is how pretty it looks coming out, right? You have this nice, beautiful cast iron skillet. So it gives it a really cool presentation. Of course, you can slice it, and you have like little slices of your cornbread that looks really nice on a plate as well. But on the outside, I know it's really hard to see, you have this nice, dark, buttery crust. And that's almost the best part, yes. Honestly. So I like to take a slice of this, and then of course I will put my greens in a bowl, and I'll dip my cornbread in that pot liquor. And it's just amazing and delicious. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of cut this stuff up real quick and see what we can do. So these greens. Even this broth, if you have any left over, you can save it, add it to a soup. Problem with that butter is you really got to get through it because it kind of sticks to the stuff. But look at this dark, beautiful, rich color.
It's worth it.
Yes, it is. It takes a little bit to cut it out. Once we get that first piece, look how nice and dark that is on that backside. That's all butter goodness right here. I have a nice, beautiful crumb here, nice and moist. And then, of course, you have your top, and you just go ahead and serve it on the side. And then you have a beautiful dish that you can serve to anybody. And I can eat about 7 or 8 bowls of this if I have to. You have all that ham hock, which I'll take out. I take off the bone. I chop it up. I add it right back into that pot. So you'll see bits and pieces of ham hock. You have that bacon in there. You have the aroma of that garlic and those onions and some pieces of tomato. And of course, you have that rich broth that is just ready to go. And I mean, you can even drink this broth, and I hope it makes you feel better. But this is kind of where I'm from. Heating these collard greens up again today, it just brings me right back to being with my family in a place that I love being, that is truly important to me. And there's nothing like Thanksgiving, and there's nothing like family. And something about these greens, this cornbread, and just the whole atmosphere just brings it all together for me. It just totally does. So I hope you learned a little bit about me. I hope you learned a little bit about some collard greens. And I hope you give them a try one of these days, and don't be shy. They're actually not expensive to make, right? So it is actually very, friendly for that. And I mean, who doesn't love cornbread, right? Give this skillet cornbread a try one of these days. It's not difficult at all, and I think you'll be relatively impressed on the different flavors you get. This is not your Marie Callender's cornbread, right? This is the real deal. So I have these recipes. I'll give them to Brett if anybody wants them. But yeah, that's me, and I appreciate you guys coming and joining me today. And, I hope you liked it.
All right, thank you very much. And that looks and smells delicious.
Yeah, I wish I could get closer, but I'm gonna spill that broth all over the place.
Right. Well, they're gonna have to make it themselves if they want to see it close up, right?
That's the only way to know. It's the only way to know.
All right. Well, there's no questions on the chat. Let me go ahead and look and see here. Jason Ford said you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Appreciate you.
That's my brother right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason's a good man.
All right.
I hope he's taking care of himself.
I'm pretty sure he is.
I haven't seen him in a while. So if anybody's on campus, they can take some.
Oh yeah, I'm on campus. I'll take some. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today for the collard greens and the cornbread. Hopefully you give it a try. If not today, maybe next week. Share it with your family. You might want to do a prpractice one before you share it.
And you can always add your favorite Louisiana hot sauce to these too.
Oh,
it has
definitely.
a nice little flavor, nice kick to it. Like I said, they're very versatile.
Most definitely. All right, so tomorrow is our finale, day 4. We have spam masubi. So that's going to be at 11 o'clock tomorrow. The Zoom link is on the flyer. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at Brett, BRETTK, @cos.edu. Stay blessed. Have a great day.